Lili Taylor, you play Anne Blaine in the second season of American Crime. For people who have not seen the series yet, tell us a little about Anne Blaine.
Anne is, she's a hard worker. She's working class. She's got a son, and she wants to do everything she can for her son. She gets him into a private school, and things go south real fast.
They certainly do. Now, for people who aren't totally familiar with the series, American Crime is an anthology, so it employs many of the same actors each season in completely different roles and settings. And last year, you had a more limited role as a victim's advocate. You shared most of your scenes with Felicity Huffman. This season, you were really front and center. You had a much more prominent role as the blue-collar mum of a troubled teenager at the center of the story. Now, this teenager is allegedly drugged and raped at a party, and the series then kind of takes everybody on a journey with respect to the implications of that particular crime. Talk us through the process of you being approached to join the cast and then taking on a completely new character for a completely new season.
Yeah. Well, you know, when John asked me to do it for season one, I knew the part was limited, and that's okay, you know. But boy, am I glad I said yes to that one for a lot of reasons. I mean, John Ridley is amazing, and he's a great collaborator. So when he told me, listen, here's the idea for season two, and here's what we're thinking, first off, this is an issue that I've been following, you know, date rape in schools. And then, you know, and originally I had a daughter, and then they changed it to a son, which I thought was so smart and great. And of course, so John Ridley, because it makes it so complex, you know. And then from the get-go, you know, we were sharing ideas, going back and forth. And with John, it's a true collaboration. So this was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life.
Wow, that's saying something, because you've been a working actor for quite a long time, and you know, when the first season ended, a lot of us were really taken aback with how great it was, especially for broadcast television. You know, it was really risky. It took a lot of chances. The second season blew that out of the water. Like, it really went to places that we don't normally go, especially on the broadcast networks. And I'm wondering, given that it touched on a lot of issues that are currently in the zeitgeist, for example, date rape or college or even school campus sexual assault, as well as crime and assault against LGBT people, how much did those issues at large inform how you were going to shape this character and the story?
You know, they influenced it a lot, except I think in exactly the right way, which was from the gut and from the heart, not from the head. And anytime anything got didactic or preachy or too idea-oriented, John would catch it, you know, and he'd say, wait a minute, I got to rewrite this.
Wow.
And for him to have that barometer, because for me, when something starts talking at me, I turn off. It doesn't impact me anymore. And John just knew it has to happen with relationships. It has to happen through the feelings, through the actors' faces. So the way he shot it, to know what to focus on, to not to bog us down with over the shoulder, close up, all that boring stuff that can happen that just starts to feel like, who cares, at least for me. And even if it means I'm not in the scene for most of it, like it's on my back, but it's on my son, but for the greater good, I'm all for that, you know?
Yeah, that was one of the great things about the series. It really, it was quite different in the way it was presented to the audience. And I'm wondering, how is a typical season of American Crime actually filmed? Are you aware of the story arc for your character going forward and of the other characters? Or is it really, from what I've read, is it much more restricted in terms of what you're aware of?
I know John lets me know what I need to know, and he doesn't let me know what I don't need to know. And it's all done for a good reason. Whereas I've been on others where I felt it was a little manipulative or a little controlling, and it didn't feel so for the greater good, you know? I also understand, though, that a lot of times they don't know where they're going, or the writers are really impacted and they might shift course, which I think is great, and I love that. So I got it. But I had no idea and the scripts were redacted. They were like CIA documents from episode 5 to 9. You know, it was all blacked out. And you know, in a way, it's like life. And that's what John's trying to create, this feeling like life, you know, especially with this season. It was happening so fast, like in real time, you know, and like how social media happens, you know, and he wanted that. And there's something when the crew doesn't even know, and they sort of jump when something happens, like even a gunshot, for instance, and they don't know someone's going to get shot. I think all that sort of is sort of like paint on a canvas, you know, somehow it all gets in there in some way. I don't know how, but it does. And so I say, if you don't want to tell me, if you don't, that's okay, John, you know?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah. Unless she's like a psychopath or something. That's all I want to know. Because then I might make a few different choices.
You'd feel like that might bring you in a different direction. So yeah, at least Anne wasn't a psychopath. That was a huge plus. It could have been really interesting, but it would have really ruined the whole show, I think.
Yeah.
You know, you're right about the immediacy of the show. It was very much in the moment. It's so hard to even explain, but that had a lot to do with the performances and the way the show was edited. You know, a lot of the critics who raved about the show were really impressed with the way the show was actually edited and presented to the audience. It gave us such an immediacy, like we were there. You know, we were able to just focus on Connor Jessup's face for minutes, which is such a luxury on television. While you are talking to him, we're looking at him, and vice versa. We're looking at you, this Anne, who is so pained and she's so damaged, and she's dealing with such a horrible experience. So you've already touched on it, but talk us through that. How challenging is it to have a camera squarely focused on you instead of going through the motions of the back and forth like we would normally see in a series?
It has so much more energy, because to me it feels like it's pure, and that it's really going to what's important. So you're not weighed down with, well, we'll never use this, but you know, we're just doing it to save our ass, you know, that kind of stuff. It's all there's no excess. It's distilled to what's important, and I feel that as an actor. And so the scene retains its integrity. The crew still has energy. They're not all going to their iPhones like, this is everyone's involved. You know, and I think it makes a difference. I think things can be very good if they're not done that way. But I think when they are done that way, it has that extra something for me.
Yeah, it really did make an impact. Now, in addition to sexual assault, and especially male rape, which is an issue that many of us don't really think about because it's not really in the media as much. One of the main points that this show really touches on, and that many of us really relate to, is this complicated dynamic relationship between parents and children, especially teenagers. And this really filtered through the whole cast. It's not just you and Connor. It's some of the other actors as well, obviously. But I'm just wondering, when Anne is, you know, supporting her son without hesitation, you know, she's stoically and heroically by his side, even when she realizes that, you know, it's not as simple as it may have seemed originally. I'd like you to talk us through the challenges of making Anne a much more complicated person. She's not just the stoic and heroic mother. There's so much more to her. And I'm wondering, I know that you would have done some research or perhaps maybe workshopped who she is as a character, but how difficult is it to really bring that across, that she's not just a simple mum?
Well, I have John's help, because John wants the complexity. So I already have that behind me. I have him going for, you know, verisimilitude on many levels, like makeup, you know, the authenticity of the house, of the diner. He's all about truth. And so, and I am too, actually. I mean, that's really important to me. And so I felt a real kinship with him on that, and I felt supported on that. And so because we were already on the same page, we were just sort of, in fact, if we would read it out loud together, we both had the same feeling when something just was a little off, maybe not honest enough, and we would change it together, you know. So because that's sort of where we're already coming from, to me, like, it's just that's where I'm at, is to honor the truth. That's my job, I feel, as a storyteller for human beings, because we're still learning about feelings. And if I'm perpetuating a false idea of a feeling, like at a funeral, this is how you behave. You cry at a funeral, as opposed to there's lots of different ways to behave. And here's my truth, and I think this might be someone else's as well.
Yeah.
You know, I once got a direction like, but see, they're not going to understand that in Kansas. This choice I'd made. And
Wow.
I said, A, I think you're underestimating people in Kansas.
Yeah.
And B, this is what I would do. So maybe you hired the wrong person. You know, because I don't want to do what you think, how we think a human being should respond, because it's doing us a disservice.
Yeah, it really, really is. I can imagine you cop that all the time. But, you know, like, it's, some of us haven't experienced sexual assault. Some of us haven't experienced hate crime, but we have certainly experienced helplessness and that feeling of guilt with children or parents. And it's that stuff that really hits home for many of us who are watching it and going along that ride with Anne. Let's focus in on, to me, one of the absolute highlights of the whole series, and that was obviously after the shooting. For anyone who hasn't seen this series, you might want to turn away. After the shooting, when Connor arrives, or sorry, when Taylor arrives at the diner, there's a whole series of scenes where, firstly, Anne is dealing with the knowledge of what's happened, and then she's sitting with him and being with him while they wait for law enforcement to arrive. Talk us through the shooting of those particular scenes, because they were really probably the heart of the whole season, I think.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say scenes, because it was one scene and it was one camera move.
Wow.
And it was, I know. And, you know, and here's John saying, he had told me from the beginning, there's going to be something, a big thing in 7. I can't explain. You know, all I knew was something big was happening in 7. And he said there's going to be a lot of movement. And what he was talking about was the camera also. And he had been planning this beautiful camera move, but to serve the scene. And he told all of us, listen, if this does not serve the scene, we are going to scrap this and we're going to redo it. I mean, I love that. I love that. But we gave it our all and it worked, as you can see. I mean, but it was really hard. So we choreographed it, and I love that stuff. So it was like a dance move with all camera. You know, it was really difficult. Just technically you know, there's no cuts. Everything has to be perfect. So, but talk about real time and capturing an essence, you know? I mean, I thought that was such a brilliant choice and paid off so well. We did it about 8 times. I was exhausted because the concentration to take for that, and the discoveries that happened through it, and just what she gets to at the end to give up her son. Oh, the whole thing. It just makes me almost. It's and then Connor. I love Connor. So that scene. I love that scene, and I love what John did with it, and I love what we as a crew did with it.
Talk us through working with Connor. He has acted before, obviously, but this is really his breakthrough role, and you both shared a lot of scenes together for obvious reasons. What was it like working with him, and how did you both develop acting against each other?
You know, in some ways, it's like sometimes you just get really lucky, and it's like a grace. And that's what I think Connor and I both feel, that we just adore each other. We love each other. We have similar aesthetic. We agree. It was just a total flow. And each day we're like, we are so lucky. We are so lucky we're with each other, you know, because we were basically just with each other, you know, and we just loved it. We just loved it. And he just wrote a script and he wants me to be in it. He's going to direct, of course. He's totally brilliant, but he's such a beautiful actor. And I just he's like a River Phoenix, or what Leonardo DiCaprio was like early on, just the feelings right there. And when a man is able to do that, it's hard. It's hard for men to get in touch with their feelings like that and flow with them, and he does, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Now that the series is said and done, we are moving into award season. It happens every year, and I would be remiss not to go there given that this is Gold Derby. This is what we do. Last year, American Crime reaped a whole bunch of nominations. It did very well for ABC, and Regina King won the Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a limited series. That's the category that we think you'll be submitted in this year. And without making you feel embarrassed or anything, you are probably one of the front runners. So there's a lot of talk about Lili Taylor being nominated. It'll be your third nomination at the Emmys. I'm wondering if that kind of thing matters to you at all. What do you think about accolades and awards for actors and cast and crew? Is it important?
Gosh, I have a lot of feelings about it. Well, one thing is that the deeper the project is, the less the award matters in a way, which is kind of great, because then you don't get caught up in the race. Because even though, like, I'm a horse, I guess, in a way, on some level, and in some ways actors are numbers anyway, numbers, horses, animals, whatever, we're many things. I should be focused on just my own race. I shouldn't be worrying about everything else, so I like that I have the profundity of the project underneath me to support, so that if it doesn't happen, I'm fine, because for me, the work balances it out. It's harder almost when it doesn't matter as much, because then the award means more, because it's more of a business move or something.
Right.
Awards are not, I think it's always nice to have something reflected back to one. And it's really nice when it happens in their lifetime, and even like, not even when they're like 90. Like, yeah. I think Bob Altman was like, that's a little late, guys,
Yeah, hello.
So, it's nice on a lot of levels, but it's an inside job. That's the thing. It's an inside job. So I have to get to the place where I'm okay either way, even though maybe that's not the truth. I have to act as if.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're an actor or you're a lawyer or you're whatever, anyone in their profession or a horse. If you're being rewarded or if you're being recognized, that's probably still a cool thing to happen. But
it's important, because we don't want to be in a vacuum. Everybody wants that.
Yeah.
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 So you've been nominated twice before at the Emmys. You were nominated in 2002 for 6 Feet Under. That's one of the roles that most of us remember you for, especially if we were fans of the show. And also for a guest role on The X-Files in '98. Can you take us back to those times? You would have attended the Creative Arts Emmys if you had attended at all. But is it exciting to be nominated? And do you remember much about it? It was a while ago now. But what was it like being nominated for Emmys?
I have to say, I've been around a while, and the Golden Globes, no one talked about back in the day. Back in the day, the Screen Actors Guild Award, no one talked about. The Emmys, not really. So it was back when awards weren't important. The only award that was important was the Academy Award, and in theater, the Tonys.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if I knew for X-Files. I may not have even known. And then for 6 Feet Under, you know what? I did go, because they were starting to get important then, and I went, and it was nice. And as I say, it's really nice to be recognized. And that's when TV was starting to change. And that was neat. That was neat to start to, because I remember a friend of mine was on Sopranos, and I remember, you're doing an HBO show? What are you doing? Why? Oh, little did I know that they were starting the revolution.
Yeah. They really did start a revolution, didn't they? And I mean, you've been a real part of that, because although you've really been in you've done a lot of film work and you've done a lot of theater, but a lot of us really do love some of your performances on television. And television these days is, it's kind of a cliche now, but it's really where a lot of the great work is. Do you agree with that? Do you find that it doesn't matter what the medium is anymore?
I don't think it matters, no. To me, it's like what the independents were back in the 90s, It's become that. There's the freedom to create.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you probably hit a lot more people. The audiences are so much wider on television that perhaps maybe that's why a lot of people really enjoy that particular format. Who knows?
Sure.
So finally, I know season 3 hasn't been announced yet. It probably won't be for a little while, but and I know you're probably contracted for season 3 if it does happen. But has there been anything at all that you can tell us, or are you still waiting for the word?
We're waiting. I guess we'll find out in May. And you know, with this stuff, it's like with apartment hunting. You know, until you have the keys in your hand with the apartment, you don't have the apartment. So I don't know. We'll see. But John's pretty good about keeping the cards close to the chest. So he says he hasn't even thought about it. I don't know about that, but you know, let's hope. It'd be nice for everybody. I felt like it was really good food for the culture, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, look, good luck for the Emmys that are coming up in a few months, and congratulations again on the on season 2 of American Crime. It was a real standout.
Thank you. Great.